I was invited by the Bishop of the Diocese of Oklahoma to come to spend time and to participate in the commemoration of David Pendleton Okerhader, and to commemorate a man who was really a remarkable man. I mean, this was a great man who lived his life here in Oklahoma, a man of the Cheyenne, a great warrior, who fought nobly, well, and eventually was a prisoner of war at the end of those wars. And while in prison, heard about, as he said in his language, another great captain. And that other great captain was Jesus of Nazareth. And he became a Christian and eventually studied for ordination in the Episcopal Church as a deacon and came home to be a missionary and a pastor among his own people. And he ministered here for years. I don't remember how many years, but it was a remarkable ministry that shared the gospel, that affirmed the authentic traditions of his people, that raised people up, that helped to provide education for children. It was just simply a remarkable ministry, and his life is really a testament to what one person can do. Old preachers used to say when I was a little boy, one with God is always in the majority. And he was one with God, and he was in the majority, and he changed lives. And so yesterday was spent with so many wonderful people at a powwow, and there was sacred dancing, and just a wonderful, blessed time. I was really blessed to be there. And the food was extraordinary. I mean, I live in the South, and when I go back to the South, I'm going to tell them about the food here in Oklahoma. It's right good, as we say. It was really just the food and the fellowship and the time was just a real blessing. And then today, to be here at St. Augustine's of Canterbury, which is just really wonderful. St. Augustine of Canterbury was the missionary who brought the gospel, if you will, to the English people, to the British Isles. And I was just in a meeting last week with the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is the descendant, if you will, of St. Augustine of Canterbury. And to be able to be here today with some of the most vibrant and powerful worship I've experienced. And I can tell you, I get around, not only around the church as presiding bishop, but I've been around the church a long time. And I've been in a lot of services. And I love church. I love the sound of church, and love its songs and its sacred moments. But I don't think I have been in a more spirit-filled, sacred, joyful, life-giving. I like to say we've got a loving, liberating, and life-giving God. And I got to tell you, the worship and the fellowship and the time here at St. Augustine of Canterbury has been loving, liberating, and life-giving. And when that happens, you know God's in the neighborhood. So it's been a blessing to be with Bishop Ed and his staff and the good people of this diocese and the people of the state of Oklahoma. It's just an honor and a privilege and a blessing to be able to be here. And even more than that, to be able to be here and to remember our beloved dead, those who died on 9/11 15 years ago, to be able to honor their memory, not simply honoring their memory as past history, but honoring their memory as a legacy for living today and tomorrow and helping this to be a better world. So it's been a real blessing for me. Well, for a number of reasons. It's my hope, and I think there's some possibility of that the federal government, working with the various nations who are affected by the pipeline, and working with the company involved, that they can come to a reasonable resolution of that, one that honors the need for energy, but that does so in ways that protect the environment that God has given all of us, and that respect the sacred burial grounds of the native indigenous Indian people who live there that don't violate. We don't violate burial grounds, and America doesn't do that. Teddy Roosevelt taught us about that. And so we've got to find a way, and I think the Interior Department, the U.S. Army, and then the Justice Department are going to work with the various nations who are affected to find a resolution. That was my hope from the beginning, and a reason for becoming a voice, lending my voice and that of the Episcopal Church to help to find a just, compassionate, and decent resolution of that conflict or that struggle, and I think the possibility is there. So hopefully everybody get together and we can usually work all our problems out if we put our heads together, and I hope that will happen there. Well, because people have been killed, and every life is sacred. Every person is a child of God. I don't care who they are. Every person is a child of God. And what we have done, there's a group called Bishops Against Gun Violence, and they have been very wise and I think skillful and faithful in trying to bring bring together people who hold different perspectives, but all of whom share a common conviction that life is sacred. People who believe very much in amendments to the Constitution, that is part of our heritage as Americans, the right to gun ownership and responsible ownership. People who believe in that, but who also likewise believe in the sanctity of life, and believe that we can find a better way. And find a better way not simply in terms of legislation, but involving legislation, but also in terms of creating environments and culture that mitigate against any form of violence against the human person, and efforts that help to provide the kind of help for people who need help, whether it is mental health or whatever it is that people need. So we don't want nobody was put on this earth to be killed. And so we've got to find a way. So it's really coming out of our belief and conviction that, when the Ten Commandments say thou shalt do no murder, I think Moses meant what he wrote. Well, we're working. I think there's a spirit of for many. I know certainly for us in the Episcopal Church, and I think many others, to find a way to learn to live together as followers of Jesus Christ. Honestly, knowing that we have differences, that we minister in different contexts, that we seek to follow Jesus and live out the gospel in very different places. And that we've got to find a way to live together with our differences. And Dr. King once said, and I think I said it in the sermon, we shall either learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we'll perish together as fools. And that's true whether it's the church or whether it's the government on this planet. And so we're working at that as the church. My hope and dream and prayer is that as followers of Jesus who are committed to living his way of love, if we're doing that, we will find a way to work through any of our differences. And that could well be a witness to the rest of the world that maybe we as the human family can find a way to live together with our differences. Well, it's been wonderful. I mean, it's been wonderful. I have to go to the gym a lot to keep losing, to make sure I don't gain too much weight, because the food is really good. But it's a real. I think and Bishop Ed could comment more on this. I suspect that the bishops, when they were electing me, weren't really thinking about I'm an African American. I mean, they were aware of it. I mean, that's sort of obvious, but I think they really were looking for someone who could join with them and the whole church and help the Episcopal Church kind of become the evangelist of the love of God that we know. that to really reach out into this world and be instruments of God's reconciliation across racial lines, across class lines, across ideological lines, and to help us reach out and to redeem the creation that is God, so that the air we breathe and the water we drink and the weather that we live in is habitable for human habitation. And to do that, they were looking for somebody who could help and give voice to that and help the church become a voice for that. And they picked me. And that I'm an African American probably doesn't hurt, but that probably wasn't forefront in their mind. It's a blessing. I think it is a privilege for me to do this, and I'm passionately committed to this. I really do believe that. It was George Bernard Shaw who said, remember that famous quote, "Some men see things as they are and ask why. I dream things that never were and ask why not." I really do believe that followers of Jesus and people of faith are why not people. We don't settle for the world the way it is. The world can be different, and we can be different. We can be better. In fact, you don't want a sermon, but you know the story of Jesus and Nicodemus? It finally dawned on me that that's what's going on there. Nicodemus is settling for the way things are, and Jesus says, no, brother, you got to be born again. There's a whole new life. That life doesn't have to be the way it always seems to be. It can be different, and societies can be different. And my election, I suspect, is one indication that, you know what, we're not the same way we were. And if that's true now, how much more could that be for the future? So there's always hope. God's not giving up on the Episcopal Church, and God's not giving up on the human family.